Leslie, I love to follow your posts on X. And so immediately I told my booker, I need to talk to this lady because she's terrific. I want to know what she's doing, why she's doing it, where she is, and then talk about your reporting. So tell me this, Leslie. Well, your last name, I know I can say it, but I just have to look at it. Kajomovitz.
Yes.
Leslie Kajomovitz. And so you're in Germany as we speak. You're American. You also live in Israel, so you're around the world, a globetrotter. Tell me a little bit about you and what you do.
So, you have a little bit of a trotter, as you said. I grew up in Latin America, although I was born in the U.S. And after I finished high school, I moved back to the United States. I did the university there. I studied visual effects, motion graphics, game art design, a little bit of journalism.
Mm.
And ever since, I've been working mainly on the news industry, handling storytelling, software for workflows, how to best optimize the production of the news production, things like that. And that's basically what I do for a living, just consulting for different news organizations, TV stations, a little bit of sports, entertainment.
Interesting. And so you can live anywhere.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So you go now. I found it interesting because it's such an important milestone in Israeli history that your grandparents left Israel around the 1929, the year of 1929, which is the year of a great massacre in Israel. So tell me, was that your mother's parents or your father's parents?
That, that was the mother of my grandfather from my
Mhm.
mom's side.
Mhm.
They're the ones who moved from Jerusalem to Latin America. And I honestly don't know much exactly why they left, the year they left. She never really spoke much about it, except for the fact that,
Oh.
she always said, she was from Palestine. And she
Mhm.
had her daughter in Palestine and that she was born in Jerusalem.
Do you have
She
her
was very
passport?
proud of it. I'm sorry?
Do you have her
Yeah, she had,
passport? Do you have
no, one of her daughters has it.
Oh, that's so neat. Because it always would have an Eretz or Eretz Israel right next to it,
Hmm.
wherever it said Palestine in English. So your family, some of your family left from Jerusalem or Israel or Palestine at the time during the mandate, went to South America, you went to America, and then you are sometimes in Israel today and sometimes in Germany. You kind of go back and
That's
forth.
correct.
All right.
Yep.
How did you get into writing? I'm reading your stories on X and find them fascinating. And how did you get into reporting?
So after October 7th, I had a few interesting encounters with colleagues that I worked for many years with.
In Germany?
Um, no, one of the most interesting ones was in the United States.
Uh-huh.
We're right at the beginning of the war when it was the German chancellor traveled to Israel and he saw the books of the UNRWA education and he decided to pause the funding for UNRWA for until further investigation. This was back in November 2023. Now, no news was covering anything that was coming out of Israel. Everything was about, what was going inside of Gaza, twisted reporting from the, so-called journalists that invaded Israel, that they worked for Hamas. And in, that basically what happened was I reached out and I said, hey, there's this story. It's going only on Israeli media. It seems pretty big. The United Nations educating Nazi jihadism. These are the words from the German counselor. And, can you cover it? Nobody's covering it. And this is a personal friend. I worked a decade with this person. And her reply was, there is no ratings for those stories. I'm sorry, we can't do. And I was shocked. And that's basically what drove me to start posting on social media. I got banned from Facebook really quickly for
Oh,
me
really?
post. Yeah,
Since October 7th?
since around December of 2023. I lost my Instagram, lost my Facebook, and that's what drove me to Twitter, because that was the only social media left. I've
Wow.
had my account for years. I never used it except for, a short period of time for work.
So they banned you from Facebook and
Yes.
Instagram, which led you to go to X because that was your alternative there. And
Eh,
you're doing fine on X, obviously. But
Actually, no. I had an account which had quite a lot of followers, and that one got suspended. This one, the one that you are following me from, it's a completely new account. It
oh
was a
yeah.
backup account that I had that I opened back in March. And I've been using it since December of last year when I also got suspended from Twitter.
You know, this is just pure speculation on my part, but I suspect that there are many Islamist, radical jihadists that work for companies like X and Facebook and Instagram and many, many others. And of course, we can't see them. We don't know them. We don't know their names. We don't know what they look like. We know nothing about them. But they're back there making decisions about who to ban and who to silence. And I think that they could probably get away with a lot before they were corrected. And maybe that's what it is, because X is certainly not under ownership that would, I would presume, to be banning you. Why? Were you saying horrible things that
No, not at all. So, okay, so on Facebook, actually, it's quite interesting. There's a report from an organization called Qatar US. They did like a little bit of an investigative report where they exposed the person who's behind the moderation, like the head of moderation.
Oh,
Somebody who has ties with the Muslim Brotherhood, obviously,
shut
something
up.
horrific.
Are you
Yes,
serious? How did I
I'm
miss
serious.
that story? You should send that to me.
I'll send it over.
This
Um,
is at Facebook. The
this is
person's
on
in charge of
Facebook. Yes,
moderation is presumably a Muslim that has ties with jihadist organizations.
yes. And this came out after Betar US was suspended from Facebook for posting two beepers. That was the tweet.
Mhm.
Two beepers.
Well, I would
Now,
post 10 beepers, so I would
yeah,
definitely be.
so that was the tweet. They got suspended, permanently suspended. There's another account in Norway, for example. They've been documenting for years anti-Semitism in the Norwegian state-owned media. It's called Stop NRK. And 5 years, they've had this group. It's a Facebook group where they post anti-Semitism from NRK in Norway. And they posted a snapshot of a news article. And that was reported as promoting terrorism. And their group was also closed. Now he's suing Facebook in Norway for that.
How did they get access to the information that this moderator had ties to um, Islamist groups?
I think just going over her social media and,
But
her
I mean,
LinkedIn.
Facebook gave the name of the person that
Yeah, and
banned
she's
them.
like a top person. Like it's somebody who's public, with her name and everything. It's not like a secret person, one of the programmers doing stuff. No, she's like the head of the moderation department of Facebook.
Natural. Anyway, let's talk about some of the stories. I want to first jump right into the story that has a lot of meat for me, and that is you know what? Let me say this. Let's first go into the story on USAID, because of
Okay.
course, everything in America is about USAID and Elon Musk and everything else like that. So tell us what you discovered, or it was probably Islamic, who reported that? I'm sorry, Middle East Forum, of course, Daniel Pipes. Sure.
Regarding the United States being one of the largest funders of jihadi terrorism around the world.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is actually a report that from Middle Eastern Forum. They actually had a congressional hearing a few weeks ago where they talked about the exact same things. They recommended Congress to open formal criminal investigations to refer to the Department of Justice. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, said that she will look into it. Now, the reality is that, what they uncovered is only the tip of the iceberg. They only looked at a handful of organizations in
Oh,
a limited region, only, related to like a few regions, and areas. And looking at a handful of organizations, they were able to trace at least $122 million that went directly to terrorist organizations. Like
yeah.
this is not potentially might have maybe what you gave to Gaza went to Hamas. No, this went to NGOs and nonprofits that have clear ties to Hamas, that have been designated terrorist organizations in Israel, that their members are, terrorists from the PFLP or other organizations. So, it's the tip of the iceberg only, what they uncovered. I basically just made a summary of the different organizations that they reported. A lot of them, NGO Monitor has been reporting a lot of them for many years. And one of the most problematic parts of the report, in my opinion at least, were two things. First, the fact that they were knowingly doing it. This was not, oh, we didn't realize. Oh, we didn't know. No, this was them knowingly sending this money to these nonprofits that they knew had ties to terrorism. And the other was, to me, very telling, this, which also NGO Monitor reported not long ago, these miscellaneous awardees. This is just a bulk of money.
Miscellaneous orgs or ORGs.
Word.
Okay.
Yeah, awardees. So these are basically
Oh,
undisclosed.
I'm sorry. So miscellaneous awardees
Yes.
to receive an award. Okay.
To receive an award from USAID and from the State Department. And these are basically unknown entities. Nobody knows where the money went. There is, there's no information on it. It's basically just, $200 million went to miscellaneous in 2024 in Gaza and the West Bank. To whom? We don't know.
When you have a bookkeeper or an accountant who uses a category within the chart of accounts that says miscellaneous or general
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, that's the early warning signal saying, there's a problem here. Because nothing should be miscellaneous when you're doling out hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of American taxpayer funds to foreign agents, to foreign organizations. How could anything be miscellaneous?
Regions. I
Yes.
mean, there are places and places. You're talking, Canada, it's not a good example anymore. I guess
there are no good. Look, they're all because
not good
if you
places
give
anymore.
money to Germany or France or Great Britain, you're probably going to an Islamist group because that's the new normal
reality.
there.
Yeah, I mean, it's this was very telling to me. The fact that they're consciously hiding the information. They are knowingly giving the money. You have, for example, in 2021, USAID reinstated the funding to UNRWA, which was taken away by Trump and his first administration. Now, there was a report from the Free Beacon, a few reports actually came out in like little drips and drops, where two things came out. First of all, they reinstated the funds, knowing that the funds might benefit from us in some way or another. This is in a memo written in an internal memo from the State Department. And the second was that they took into consideration another memo given by the United Nations that said that the jihadi education was, within the principles of the UN. And they just accepted it.
So it's an educational program that they were funding And
Well, the UNRWA, it teaches the children all this jihadi education in the schools, the United Nations, the Refugee Agency.
right.
So part of the things that they do is they indoctrinate children. Their math lessons are basically counting martyrs. Their grammar lessons are, good, talking about jihad and how they're going to liberate the land. You look at their books, they have drawings of little children, attacking soldiers, for their physics
Well,
lesson,
it's Nazi
So,
jihadist,
yeah,
fascist.
Nazi jihadist
Yeah.
education.
Yeah. And no,
So,
they don't only count martyrs. They also count dead Jews. So this would be like,
yeah,
you've got 5 Jews, you killed 3 Jews. How many Jews do you have left to kill? And so those are real
and the
math
ones that are
problems.
left, we want to kill them anyways.
Yes, exactly. Then there'll be 0. And then there were none. So they know what they're funding. And it's a little tiresome. I understand why that we have to sometimes use moderated language and identify something or not identify the motivations without clear evidence. But at the same time, I think that a grown-up who has a job in the State Department or, USAID proper, when they see where the money's going, I don't think that there's much room for excuse to say this person may have known what they were doing. I would say the person always knows what they're doing unless you find out they're guilty until proven innocent, because when you send something to Gaza, you cannot do anything other than know that it's probably going to Hamas. And so,
Pretty much. I
right.
mean,
So,
and you have, for example, things that are very disturbing. There are NGOs, like there's one NGO in Norway called the Norwegian People's Aid. This NGO was basically, they had allegations that they were funding Hamas and providing material support to Hamas, that they lied in their forms in order to get funding from USAID and the State Department. And they went to trial in the United States, in federal court. Eventually, they ended up settling. They gave, I think, $2.5 million back to the U.S., in the settlement. And the U.S. continued to fund the organization until today. Well, I don't know if today, but at least until before, the shutdown of USAID. You're talking about $300 million since 2008 that has been given to only this particular NGO, who already said in front of court that it's going to settle because, they gave support to Hamas and the PFLP and has ties to Iran. It's willful blindness.
no, it's not blindness. It's called deceit. It's takia, Norwegian takia, and they're just deceiving. And it's the ends justify the means, any means necessary. That's how we have October 7th. No, it's not willful blindness. That is knowledgeable and with knowledge. And when you then, it's almost like our revolving door justice system in America, where today, because of George Soros, people are put back out on the street just to come be arrested again, go through the system, be put back out on the street. We just churn them through the system as if they've never committed the crimes and as if it's like the first time offense for everybody. That's truly an outrage. Is that in your story? Because I didn't catch that particular one.
I did the one particular post only on that NGO. I can
Okay.
send you the link on it.
Yeah, send me the link, because that is an outrage. Now let's go to the stories that I originally saw you doing, and that has to do with something that's very near and dear to my heart: journalism, Qatar, and Al Jazeera. Explain for our listeners. I think most people would understand the connection between Qatar and Al Jazeera and Muslim Brotherhood and the Wahhabist ideology, but go ahead and fill that out for us.
All right. So Al Jazeera, it is basically funded by the Qatari royal family. So it is it's a state-owned media, whether you like it or not, at the end of the day. Now, Al Jazeera in the United States was originally banned for many, many years because of its ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. At some point in 2006, Al Gore, he had a TV station called Current TV, and he
Oh,
sold it to Al Jazeera, and that became Al Jazeera America. That was the first time Americans were actually introduced to watching Al Jazeera because otherwise it was banned. They couldn't stream it in the US. Al Jazeera America had a lot of trouble with their content because a lot of the content that, the content that was produced in Qatar was still banned, so they couldn't broadcast it in the US. They had a lot of technical issues. Their building got flooded a couple times, so all their equipment got destroyed a few times, millions and millions of dollars out, down the drain, literally down the drain. Um, and eventually they shut it down. And that was sort of the transition between, linear television and social media and streaming. So then they launched Al Jazeera Plus, which is basically targeting youngsters. Now, when we think of Al Jazeera, we think of it as a website. We think of it as a few accounts on social media and a TV station. But in reality, Al Jazeera is so much more than that. One of the big things with Al Jazeera, for example, is they syndicate their content, which is extremely dangerous. So you're watching CNN, you're watching the BBC, you're watching Fox News, and you're not realizing that you're actually watching content produced or, created by Al Jazeera. And you don't need to put the branding, you don't need to say that it's from Al Jazeera because it's syndicated content. At the same time, Al Jazeera in Qatar, well, not Al Jazeera, but Qatar built what's called Media City Qatar. And Media City Qatar, it's literally a little city that's everything to do with media. Startups, Al Jazeera headquarters. You have the CNN headquarters are going to be moving there. You have Euronews. You have, some journalism academies that are part of Al Jazeera. You have a research center and a think tank. And anything and everything to do from distribution to content creation to regular media as news and journalism to gaming. So they're even getting into the gaming industry, training gamers to do their own games. We saw some games coming out, disturbing games come out in the last few months, replicating the October 7th massacre where people can play that. I don't know if it came from there, but, they are training people to make video games as well. And the academy itself is pretty big and it's pretty well known within the media industry. Leading organizations send their journalists to Qatar to get trained by the Muslim Brotherhood at the end of the day on editing, on research, on reporting, on, how to be an anchor, equipment, everything, like you name it. They'll train you on that. They also have some trainings online that you can enroll. Most of them require that you work for an organization, so not anybody can join. And in the last decades, they've trained with 75,000 people, journalists around the world. And it's exponential because a lot of them are managers that go and train their own people back home. So, you 75 that later went and trained another 10, maybe a percentage of it went and trained a few others. And it grows and grows and grows. They also made partnerships with universities. So now they're training even people who are not journalists yet. So you have, different universities have made partnership with them.
with regard to the media, I mean, I know how much money Qatar
Sure.
is.
Right. You have very well-known journalism schools made agreements with them. They open headquarters in Qatar and they're training journalists in Qatar with the name of Western universities that are based in Doha.
Okay. When I saw this story, it really upset me. I didn't see that part of the story. I was already very upset. I read through everything. I went to the websites. I downloaded training manuals. I spent a great deal of time on it. Thank you very much for giving me the heads up. So what we're saying is the Qatari royal family, which is a Wahhabist, follows the Wahhabist tradition or religion or sect, if you will, of Islam, which is as fundamental can be. That means every line of the Quran, they don't dismiss it like we hear. Well, but my neighbor next door is so nice, and they're Muslim, so no, they literally read the Quran, they know it, and Muslim Brotherhood. Um, the entire purpose of Muslim Brotherhood, when it was founded, I think in 1928 in Egypt, was to restore Islam to its roots. Like as a Christian, we'd want to restore ourselves to biblical Christianity of Yeshua, Jesus, and the apostles. We'd go back to the book. They want to bring everybody back to the Quran. They want a strict following of Sharia, because remember, in Islam, there is only one law. And that is why they say when they infiltrate Europe and America, they're going to take down our Constitution, because only the Sharia can dominate. It is the only legitimate law in the world. And so it has to be the law for all the world. So this is the Qatari royal family. What they do is some of the women, like a queen or a princess or whatever, she'll wear her Louis Vuitton or whatever, the most popular and most expensive handbags and shoes are. They'll wear makeup and maybe not wear a veil, because for public consumption, international public consumption, what is she doing? She is doing like a civilization or a PR jihad, right? They know what she's doing.
But
This, and because they do have different kinds of jihad, like they have arson jihad, where you burn down forests in Israel, America, all over Europe. It's called arson jihad. And then there's, of course, birth jihad, where they say that the wombs of Muslim women are like, I don't know what the metaphor is. It's ridiculous, the slogan.
no, they're gonna just have a bunch of babies, and eventually,
Exactly,
out.
take over Europe, and they're getting there. So
Yeah.
this is Qatar that we have been negotiating with since October 2023 in order to get a fair and lasting peace in the Middle East. That is Qatar. Um, their state-funded media is Al Jazeera, and everybody knows Al Jazeera. It used to be banned in America. Somehow Al Gore turned that over by selling it to Al Jazeera. But the point being is that it's infiltrating
Well,
not only America, but all over Europe and all over the world.
well, there's a few points which are very interesting. First of all, you have the fact that Al Jazeera Plus was mandated to register with Farah by Trump in his first term. Until today, they haven't done it. There's been
Oh,
multiple letters by Congress that has been sent to the Department of Justice, figuring out, hey, what's going on with these? They refuse to do it. Al Jazeera Plus, again, which is the one that targets the young generations, also has a syndication agreement with Euronews in Europe, obviously, Euronews Group. And they are the syndicators of Al Jazeera Plus content worldwide. So a lot of media organizations are getting, TikTok video style, videos and content to publish on their own networks that are being produced by Al Jazeera, but don't come with the Al Jazeera branding. It just comes with the Al Jazeera messaging.
and this is so dangerous because um, Wahhabism, and I can't remember the name of their chief, holy man who died in the last decade, and I'm sure has been replaced, but he was very, very revered. And he calls for radical jihad, Islamic supremacism around the world, the entire world to be under the rule of Sharia Islam. That means I'm a dhimmi. If they let you live, you're a dhimmi. We pay the tax of submission, um, which is really a penalty for not being Muslim, and you have to do it in humiliation. And by the way, Muslims know all this stuff. When they open their mouth and they sometimes talk about it, it's funny because in Europe, I've seen them saying to reporters, of course, when we are a majority in Germany and a majority in the UK, we will impose Sharia and we will impose all the laws of Sharia and you will be dhimmi and you will have to pay jizya in
They're
subjection.
Here's
Yes.
the problem. The problem is they are open about it, and the world, it's completely blind. They don't want to see it. They want to, they want to hear as if they're saying other words. They translate it to whatever they want. I really don't know, but they're really open about it. Now, Qatar itself, on the other hand, is not very open about it. Qatar is they mastered the art of deception in 2022 for the World Cup that they hosted.
Oh, yeah.
So there was, first of all, there was the whole scandal with FIFA that they had purchased the rights of hosting that there was corruption in FIFA, that they had paid FIFA in order to host the the World Cup.
Individual ministers to the European Parliament received
No,
graft.
that's something else. That's something completely different, which is called Qatar Gate, which just
Oh,
it-
I'm
no,
getting my gates
dates
mixed up.
back from some years ago, where the moment that they were selected to host the World Cup, there was a documentary that came out and stories that came out about how Qatar had bought the rights from FIFA, and it exposed all the corruption within FIFA itself. So there was a big scandal against FIFA for that. And obviously that was, didn't look good on Qatar. And they started paying PR agencies to, clean up their names. Now, these PR agencies, who they were cleaning up the names, obviously putting ads on the television to politicians all over the world, left and right. It doesn't matter. It's not about the party lines here. It's just about the image. Later came the scandal of the preparations of the World Cup, where thousands upon thousands of people died building the infrastructure for the World Cup. You have to remember, Qatar is a country of 330,000 local people, Qatari people.
That's a
And then they have
that's like just any old
global.
city in America.
Yeah, I mean, it's teeny tiny. And then they have 2.5 million foreign workers, which are pretty much slaves, modern day slavery. They take their passports, they pay them peanuts, they have to pay the broker that took them to Qatar. They live in horrible conditions. There's all sorts of human rights violations going on in there. And to hide all that, they started paying politicians, media companies, and all this isn't on the open. There are many of these people that were exposed for being agents for Qatar that worked for the CIA. There was a pundit for MSNBC that also worked for Qatar that received, I think, $1 million or 100. Yeah, I think it was $1 million a year or something like that. So there's quite a few names that have been thrown out that have been exposed here and there. But in reality, what they do is they buy soft power. They infiltrate every single institution, education, politics, media, real estate. In Spain, which we were talking about the Qatar Gate, in Europe, the European Parliament, it was discovered they were accepting piles of cash, the ministers of the European Parliament, from Qatari officials. In Spain, for example, in Barcelona, they were going to purchase a bullfight stadium to build the largest mosque in Europe. This was in Barcelona. It didn't happen at the end of the day. I think somebody else bought it and they converted it into a shopping center, but their original plan was that. But, now we talk about universities, the education, but in reality,
let me just see if I can just process that. So what I'm building the case for here, inviting you on to explore, is who Qatar is really. I was worried when Witkoff went to Qatar, cut a deal about the Israeli hostages that was clearly not good for Israel. I'm going to say a caveat there. So I was very, very upset about it because, you read the deal and you say, oh, well, that's a disaster. How can this come out of President Trump, which I am a Trumpster, a MAGA, America First American all the way. And then it hit me as I ruminated on it. Okay, this is clearly a move. It's part of the tactics. It's part of achieving something and being able to do something else. I can't see inside his head and all of his people. I wasn't happy about it, but I knew that he had to have a move. And so he did that. But I thought it was being done superficially. Like, don't they understand what they just put together for the hostage deal? And then afterwards, when Trump was saying something like, they asked, well, do you think this hostage deal will remain in effect and it will be brought to its conclusion successfully? And he says, I don't know. He says, it's their war. So what he was saying is, look, if Israel has to go back in and go back to war tomorrow, I'm okay with that. That is their war. And that's when I knew for sure that he was completely not being gaslit, or I'm hoping not being gaslit by Qatar. But Witkoff is a little concerning. Is he concerning to you too?
Listen, there are many people who are concerning. It's not just him. You also have, the Attorney General, for example. She used to work for one of these PR firms. She lobbied for Qatar and, to clean up the image for the World Cup. During the confirmation, she said that she was proud of the work that she did for Qatar. And like that, you have quite a few people in the administration that, that work for the PR agencies at some point that lobbied for them. So, it's one of those things that it's hard to tell, because here's the thing. On the first administration, Trump first came out in the garden, and he made a big speech about how Qatar was one of the largest financiers of terrorism and how they needed to stop funding terrorism. Something happened that very, I don't know, I think it was like a year later or something like that. Then he praised them for the steps they were taking for stopping to fund terrorism. I didn't see them take any steps. So what are we praising here? Now, it gives you mixed messages at the end of the day in terms of where does the administration stand.
And what I would say, I'm just speculating. This is all just speculation because we don't have a report in front of us where the Qataris and Trump team and all that put it together for us and explain themselves. But what might have happened there is because Trump was, I'll put it in delicately, gaslit by so much of his administration, because at that point, you know how hard it is to staff up with 5,000, 10,000 conservatives that are America first and want the rule of law and to root out injustice and fraud, waste, and abuse. That's really hard to do. He went into his first administration with more people working against him than for him. And they lied to him and even mentioned it. It was a CIA person that he trusted, and I can't remember what the particular thing was, but he just lied to him. But he trusted him because you have to trust somebody eventually, right? So hopefully that's behind us. We've got Rubio, Elise Stefanik. We've got, of course, Mike Huckabee, and just so many other people that are very, very much committed to Israel and Zionism. And I think that's very, very important, because that's one indication, not that it's a litmus test, but that it has to be, but it's one indication that somebody's on the right side of history and morally,
I really hope that it
centered.
follows through.
Pete Hegseth is who I was thinking. Pete Hegseth is very, very solid on Israel.
Here's the thing, as you know, the issue is not just Israel. The issue, it's a global issue. It's a problem across the entire region, North Africa, Europe. We know what's going on. We know what's going on in Canada, in the US. But my fear is that, politics always wins at the end of the day and not morality. And we're seeing it with Syria. We see the State Department asking the jihadi government of Syria that is slaughtering the Christians and Alawites to bring the jihadis that are slaughtering to justice? Like, we condemn the slaughter, and at the
Wait a
same
minute, did
time,
Marco Rubio say that?
yeah, yeah. The State Department issued a statement in which they condemned the slaughter of the minorities in Syria, and then subsequently asked the government to take measures and bring those responsible to justice. It's like, they are the responsible ones. They're not going to bring themselves to justice. Like,
What is happening in Syria, of course, anybody with a brain would have been able to foretell, and many did, is that they're literally torturing, raping, slaughtering, executing non-Muslims, non-compliant Muslim minorities, which is called
a
genocide.
little
I
bit,
mean, mhm.
it's a little bit more complicated
Tell
than
me.
that, at least comes to the Alawites, because the Alawites are the sect that Assad belonged to.
Right.
So all the atrocities that Assad did, they were doing it against the Muslim population. And, right now they're just sort of on this vengeance, I guess, so it's not as clear. It's not as just, oh, they're minorities and we're going to go slaughter them because now
You're
we're
right. And maybe I should have said minorities, but they are minorities.
they are
But that's not
minorities,
why.
are
Um,
slaughtering
yeah, it's
civilians, women,
vengeance against the
them, and
Alawites.
pillaging and raping. But they, at least in their case, there's also like vengeance inside of them, which also makes it work.
At least they have some justification. But otherwise, the Christians and the Druze, I don't know if they're slaughtering Druze yet, but the Christians, they certainly are. And that's
Yeah, the
just for
Christians
merely
are,
being Christian.
they've been slaughtering the Kurds for a long
Oh, yeah,
time.
and the Kurds, of course.
They just signed a temporary deal or some sort of deal where the Kurds and some of the Druze are going to integrate into the Syrian army and the Syrian government. All this was brokered apparently by the U.S. Apparently it was SETCOM that met with the Druze and with the, not with the Druze, with the Kurds. And out of that, eventually, magically, the day after, this magic deal where, oh yeah, we're going to try to be friends and be part of a unified government. Doesn't
You
make sense. The
can't be friends. You cannot compromise with al-Julani. You cannot compromise with Al Jazeera, Qatar, Hamas, Muslim, especially Muslim Brotherhood as an organization. None of these things. There is no such thing as a compromise. It's to be willingly duped. You're not really duped. I mean, how can anybody be so stupid? Because he put on a suit and a tie, he didn't become civilized.
Exactly. I
That's
mean, just because he's taking more showers, he doesn't take the jihadi at them.
And he's got his, is really
It's very
popular shaped. Yeah, what do they call that? I always forget. It's like hipster, like his
Yeah,
hipster
like
beard. And so he could look like this really cool guy out for the night on the town. And I don't know if you knew this, probably did, but they replaced in the schools the curriculum with essentially a Sharia compliant jihadist, curriculum, which is to be expected because pretty much they all do. They started the history of Syria on the day that that Muhammad, rightly guided caliph, I don't know which one it was. I think it's not Umar, it doesn't matter, Uthman. Anyway, that they marched into Syria back in, I don't know, 632 or something like that. That's the beginning of history for Syria. Nothing happened before that. That's what a Muslim Islamic Sharia government looks like. You just change history to conform to whatever the propaganda is going to be. And obviously, Christians and Jews, there's not going to be many Jews, but Christians and Druze or anybody else living there is going to have to agree that that's the beginning of history in Syria. Let's go back to Qatar. This is my proposition, and I've mentioned this to several people on this show. I propose that Qatar and Iran are like cousins or sisters. And one is, or the good cop, bad cop. One is the public face of bloodthirsty, drooling, rabid hatred, death to America every Friday night, death to Israel, death to the Jews, Allahu Akbar. And then the other side is, well, let's just get our, $2,000 handbags and have beautiful, restaurants and bring Americans in and Europeans in and I don't know if they wine them, but anyway, act like a Western nation, modern Western nation does, in how women are presented as well. And they're doing as much or more damage because they're doing it by deception. Their guise is that they are moderate. And so Iran is bad. It's ugly on the surface, but this beautiful one, we just put lipstick on a pig, but it's the beautiful one is really just evil in its heart and doing the very same thing, or maybe some different things, but to the ultimate end of worldwide global jihad and the caliphate.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to, there is also the, in general, yes, you're absolutely right. And you can look at it, for example, just recently, Iran and Qatar, they share oil, they share
Gas
energy
field.
resources, gas fields, etc. So a lot of the money that Iran is getting is from that joint venture. So it doesn't matter what sanctions you put on Iran, how hard you go on Iran, unless you tackle that part of the equation, you're still not solving the. Now, recently, Qatar was asking the United States to unfreeze certain money. I think it was like $6 billion to give to Iran in some frozen money, which I don't remember. Oh, for the kidnapped people that were released, I think. Anyways, you also have, for example, the nuclear program. The Prime Minister of Qatar just came out in this monologue that was done by Dr. Harrison, horrible, where he just basically, tried to portray this image of Qatar. Right now, they're suffering, again, image problems.
Qatar is.
Yeah, because of all the ties with Hamas.
Yes.
Now they're starting to suffer as, they're being tied into, we are, again, a terrorist state. A lot of the old things, like, for example, the fact that they harbored one of the 9/11 masterminds, they helped them
Khalid
escape.
Sheikh Mohammed.
Mm-hmm. So all of those things are starting to revive again. So they need to clean up their image. And they went on this interview trying to sell to the world that they are these poor victims of unfair criticism, unfounded criticism. That the fact that they don't want to accept transsexuals doesn't mean that they should be judged for that. It's like, no, you weren't judged for not accepting transsexuals in your society. You were asked what you're going to do with the gay people that go for the World Cup. Are you going to kill them like you kill the gay people in your country? I mean, it's a very fair question if you're going to have Westerners come in. It's not an unreasonable question to ask. But they switched it in such a way, and that included they are 100% against the nuclear program. They want to protect Iran no matter what.
Wait a minute, they're 100% against the nuclear program or for Iran's nuclear program?
For attacking the nuclear program of Iran. So, for example, when Iran attacked Israel with their hundreds of missiles, the United States couldn't use the airbase. So the U.S. has the largest airbase in the region in Qatar. The Biden administration just renewed for another 10 years to be there just before he left. So we're in another 10-year deal with them. And they prevented the U.S. from using that airbase to defend Israel. They said no, because that's going to damage our own security. So you can't use it. So who's the owner of the base? Qatar or the U.S.?
Well, if you can say, if you can say where your planes can go and who they can bomb from that base, then obviously Qatar controls it. And we agreed to it. Was that during the Biden
No,
administration?
we're just monkeys sending our soldiers to be, to protect Qatar. We can't use it for our own interests. So what are we doing there?
We don't need it. They're taught, America has hundreds and hundreds of bases, and I'm sure some are very, very small. I never was able to discover I think it's something like 700 bases. So clearly they're not all massive like this. But we most certainly could do something as an alternative to the Qatar base. And perhaps, I mean, of course, what's frustrating is you put billions of dollars into developing something and then you walk away from it because you're leaving. I don't know if you can sell an Air Force base to somebody. But we need to get out. Don't you
Um,
agree?
for the most part, I guess the most expensive part of it is the equipment you can take with you, the planes you can take with you, the
And the
people you can
people.
take with you. And then it's just building the runways and the hangars and things like that. I mean, obviously
That's true.
still millions of dollars on investment, but
But
it's
we throw
not
away
something.
we throw away a
Yeah,
lot of that stuff, that kind of
exactly.
money, like a second. I believe we should. I'm hoping that President Trump um, moves forward on this because I can tell you his new cabinet, it's not Trump 45's cabinet. We all know that.
Yeah.
It's not even remotely close. So Qatar is also using this is so orchestrated and intentional that it doesn't even really require that much of an explanation. They want to be the center of diplomacy, of they want every company, well, particularly every nation and major corporations and university institutions, everybody to have a connection with Qatar. Now, one thing that's smart, and I understand it, one thing is then people are less likely to attack you or go to war against you because everybody's got a stake and a relationship with you in your nation. Okay, fair enough. It's their self-interest. But I think it's much, much more than that. So they have many, many Air Force bases there, many universities based there. Now, you talked about the Media Institute is based there, and they're bringing media. There's one
I also,
theme, right?
they have a
Mm.
research center. Listen to this. They have a research center. This research center does all sorts of research. It's media research. But they just finished doing one, which was on how to shape societies through media, or how to control or change societies through media.
I saw
That was the theme of the research.
I saw that. I saw that, and you could see everything coming from it because this is
Yeah.
not new. This is just
No.
called propaganda. We've had people, I'm studying the history of our education system because it's so rife with Marxist, globalist um, influences back in even the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and of course, obviously through the 80s, 90s, and today. And hopefully that's being dismantled. But it's essentially how to reshape free societies, particularly, first and foremost, to either, to be captured or to embrace